Mics are hot. Good evening and welcome to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. Tonight we are live from Studio Vanguard. We're linked in with the following repeaters.
That would be my cue, right? That
Well,
would be my cue.
Somebody can take that.
Yeah,
cue.
I've got it. So tonight we are live on the following repeaters. Stand by.
Which repeaters are we following?
Tonight we are on Columbus, Lula, Flagship, Watkinsville, Rome, McDonough, Jersey, Noonan, Peachtree, Toccoa, Zebulon, Dallas, Ocala, Fort Mountain, White Oak Mountain, Lookout Mountain, Ottawa, Mount Roosevelt, Cades Cove, Chattanooga, and Georgetown.
You got to scroll to be able to get to all of those on the list.
It is a long list.
It's a full page.
Yeah,
It's a full page.
It sure is. Tonight, our RF coverage encompasses approximately 41 gazillion square spaces.
Centimeters.
Centipedes?
That works.
Yeah.
That's a lot of centipedes.
That's bugs. That bugs me. This net takes place every Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m.-ish. I would like to thank everyone who has made the North Georgia GMRS the most expansive and active GMRS network in the country. Your net control tonight is Atlanta 946 WQIR 514. My name is Justin.
And WRWM 344, Blue Ridge 63. My name is Mike.
And WRUB 711, Atlanta 519. My name is Gary.
On the net, you can talk about your day's activities, radio equipment, or anything you think we'd like to hear about. This is a family-based network, so we encourage you to get your family involved. Guest check-ins are welcome from anyone with a valid FCC call sign. Once the floor is open, it is permissible to address other members of the net by their name or tactical unit number. Your FCC call sign is only required when you sign in and sign out of the net. Also, you can tune in to our YouTube channel and follow along. Or even better yet, tune in after the net to watch your appearance on the network and hear how you sound to us right here in Studio Vanguard. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment so we know you are watching, and these interactions mean the most to help our channel grow. Tonight's topic is programming radios.
It's a good one.
So, we'll talk about some of the methods and some of the quirks and some of the challenges that we face in programming radios. One of the things that I think is key to programming a radio, or understanding why we program a radio, is understanding how repeaters work. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. What else do we have? I think this is all noise now. So it's too much. It's too much.
Isn't that what all of it is?
Yeah. Well, I've got old stuff in here from the hamfests and all kinds of stuff. So at this time, I think we're going to go ahead and resume Zello. Actually, we should do announcements.
We should. Do you have those handy?
I do have them. I have them right here.
Because I don't.
All right, I'll do the announcements then, since we're a little bit out of sorts. We would very much have preferred to have Julie do the announcements because she's much better looking than I am, but you're stuck with me tonight. So good evening, everyone. This is, well, you know who I am, and we have this week's announcement. Well, you knew that too. I've got upcoming gatherings to tell you about this week that are all right around the corner. Pay attention. As Julie would say, write this down. I get in trouble if I don't write it down, so take note. These meetups are a great way to meet fellow members in and around your area. The Kennesaw Gathering will meet for lunch on Tuesday, March 11th at noon. For some reason, I thought that was at 11. March 11th at noon at the Old Town Tavern and Grill, 2500 Cobb Parkway Northwest. That's right around the block from the McCollum Airport. Join us for our first ever Meet and Geek, and bring your radio or programming issues to discuss and resolve. So this is great timing. They're going to have a gathering next week to talk about programming radios. So I'd encourage anybody that has a radio programming challenge to reach out to Ed at wrqg806@gmail.com. and let him know what kind of a radio you're going to bring, so he can be sure he has the right programming cables and software for that. So they're going to have lunch. They're going to talk about programming radios, and they're going to actually dig into and do some programming on radios at the restaurant there at the Old Town Tavern and Grill, 2500 Cobb Parkway Northwest. So be sure and check that out. That's going to be Tuesday, March 11 at noon. Peachtree Corners Brunch Bunch meets at JR's Log House in Peachtree Corners. That's 6601 Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. Peachtree Corners Circle. Oh, it's time to break. I'll be right back. Thank you for that, because I obviously can't keep track. 6601 Peachtree Industrial Boulevard, Peachtree Corners Circle, next to the bridge on top of the hill. Every third Saturday of the month. This time around, it'll be the 15th, and it'll be from noon to around 2:30. Great comfort food, from breakfast omelets to veggies and salads, plus any type of barbecue, tasty selections, casual country farmhouse setting. Regulars and new faces are invited. We invite you to wear your GMRS shirt or something with green for St. Patrick's Day coming up. RSVP to Pamela, Skygazer Pamela 849@gmail.com. So Skygazer, one word, Pamela, one word, no spaces, 849@gmail. Or you can call out on the radio to Atlanta 848-ERNEST and get more information about the March 15 Peachtree Corners Brunch Bunch. The next West Side Luncheon is on Saturday, March 8th. That is That's
That's 2 days.
yeah.
Day after tomorrow.
Man, I've got someplace I have to be on Saturday, but that looks like that would be a lot of fun. March 8th at the Taco Mac in Marietta. Join the Rabbit Hole group for good food and fellowship. I wonder if that's why David told me he couldn't make it. The address is 2650 Dallas Highway, Suite 110, Marietta. And for your GPS, if you want a zip code, that's going to be 30064. The West Side Luncheon is the Rabbit Hole group, and that's going to be Saturday, March 8th, 2 days.
We may set out on the deck. You know, it may be warm enough weather for David to have the crew on the deck Saturday.
Yeah, I think that would be fantastic. We do have some dining on the patio weather rapidly approaching.
It is.
It's not here yet right now, but it's coming. So be on the lookout for that. Let me break. And the nets. We have the next Rabbit Hole net is coming Sunday, March 16. Early check-ins are at 7 p.m. The net begins at 7:30. The topic will be announced next week. The Ladies Roundtable net is the first Monday of the month. The next Ladies Roundtable will be this coming April 7, starting at 7:30 p.m. and lasting until around 8:30. Please remember that guests are welcome. Don't worry about being too late or too early. When there is a pause in the conversation, just say your GMRS call sign and Net Control will give you a seat at the table. The topic will roll with the conversation. This week's round table was a very interesting conversation. My favorite part was the chat about quick meal ideas. It's funny how so much of what we do in radio ends up coming back to what we eat.
We are a food bunch.
We are a food-motivated group of people, that's for sure.
I can't think of a time we've all gotten together and there's not been food involved.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
You're right.
I think we normally start with food and then we end with food.
That's right.
Yeah, that's yeah. Well, I mean, it's important to have a snack.
Julie's got a box of chocolate chip cookies up there. Oh man.
You know what they say?
Oh, you've got one.
A balanced diet is a cookie in each hand.
I thought you were going to say
I need another cookie.
a whole box of cookies is way or what do they say? Way too much is just about enough.
There you go. I like it. Let's break. We got some more. Tuesdays on the northern region of the network feature our Skywarn net. You know, I heard some exciting news with regard to Skywarn. Apparently, the National Weather Service has recognized that there's enough activity and interest in Skywarn and from the GMRS side in the Chattanooga area that Peachtree City is now going to start offering some Skywarn classes just because of the inquiries that have been made. Hey, they've got one. When do we get one? So I think they heard you, and I think that we can be on the lookout soon for some more Skywarn support from Peachtree City. So for those of you in North Georgia that want to get involved in Skywarn, we probably will not be bringing Skywarn to North Georgia GMRS. There are some great Skywarn programs already in place, so I would encourage anyone with any interest in that to pursue what's already out there. We support the Skywarn activities in Chattanooga area because of the unique geography, limitations in radio coverage, and additional support. So with that, let me continue on. This is a training net on Tuesdays. This is a training net for Skywarn weather spotters in coordination with the National Weather Service and is available only in the Chattanooga area of the North Georgia GMRS Network. We break the network in order for the Skywarn activities to happen in the Tennessee area. On Wednesdays, we have a short ERC net at 8 p.m. This is a roll call net and is closed to North Georgia GMRS members. This net is for ERC members only. Please refrain from checking into this net unless you are an ERC member. The regional net is on Thursdays with early check-ins beginning at 7:04 p.m., nominally at 7. And the program begins at 7:30 p.m. This net covers a variety of topics which are usually posted on our Facebook page. And it looks like, we have one more. No, we have more than one. We have other activities. Let me break. All right, listen hard, folks. This is the one that we've all been waiting for. The 4th annual Smith Family North Georgia GMRS Network Family Picnic is coming up.
I'm so excited.
Ah, yes. Can you use family twice in one sentence? Apparently I did. All right, never mind that. This year it will simply be a family picnic with burgers, hot dogs, and fixings. Saturday, April 26th is our target date, and the location will be at the flagship repeater site. We'll have the building open for some tours. You'll be able to see the equipment. You'll be able to see the tower, and see firsthand our flagship repeater location. So looking forward to that. Since the event is outdoors, we may have to exercise a rain date. So when we get closer to the event, we will have more details and instructions. We hope to present tours, I just said that, and offer a presentation covering site history. All right, so pencil in the 26th, but be mindful that date may change. Excited about that. This will be on the grounds at Flagship. Now, there is, at Flagship, we have, the property that's right next to the fire station. But on the other side of the fire station, we also have access to some property where we'll be doing most of the car parking. So we'll have some volunteers that will help direct traffic. Just be mindful that you might not, you just follow the signs, and we'll get you parked where you need to be. We'll have some ATVs or side-by-sides or maybe even Chuck's golf cart to shuttle people from the parking area over to the building. So that'll be good stuff, and I'm looking forward to April 26th.
Burgers, fries, and all the fixins'.
Yeah.
Wow, sounds good already.
I think we'll have to bring the air fryer, make some tater tots, too.
Oh, yeah.
The Chattanooga Amateur Radio Club continues to offer free classes and workshops on a variety of topics. For those interested in obtaining their ham radio license, there are now multiple licensing classes available for all levels, technician, general, and extra. Check their website at w4am.net for the new list of classes and workshops. Be sure and register at w4am.net. Julie and I have been to the classroom facility that they have, and it's an excellent environment for education and for fellowship. So I think that if you can make it to any of these classes, and I tell you, the group environment is the best way, I think, to study for an amateur license. You have people that are with you studying the same material, and you kind of have that accountability to one another. So when you begin studying a topic and there's homework to do, somebody shows up and they haven't done their homework, it's kind of obvious. And so you have that self-driven peer pressure that pushes you into achieving that study on your own. And I think that's just a great motivation to keep you on top of the study for your amateur license. Hamfest season is in full swing. The ARRL website has pages and pages of area hamfests. So if you miss one, you'll be able to find others coming up soon enough. There's hamfest almost every weekend from now throughout most of the summer. The American Red Cross of Georgia is holding a Sound the Alarm event installing free smoke alarms in Cartersville, Georgia on March 22nd. For those wanting to volunteer, please reach out to Terry Oliver at terry.oliver@redcross.org for more information and the meetup location. This is it. If you have any questions or comments, news to share, send me an email at justin@nggmrs.org. We are North Georgia GMRS Network. And
back to net control?
Back to net control. That's what it says. All right. With that in mind, let's go ahead and round out the check-ins. I think we'll go back and we'll see if we have any additional Zello check-ins first. Net control standing by for Zello check-ins only.
Well, there's our friend Rogers checking in on the YouTube chat. Rogers is doing some work for ESPN tonight. Some film work. Rogers, thanks for tuning in. I've got you in the log.
All right, hearing no response for Zello check-ins with that long and awkward pause, we're going to go ahead and continue on with check-ins from any repeater other than Flagship. Net Control standing by.
This is FR 920, Atlanta 306.
WRYC 838.
This is WROB 245, Atlanta 849, Pamela in Duluth checking in and out, and Atlanta 848, Ernest in Duluth checking in and out. Have a great net. Be listening and I'm mobile.
This is WRKK629, Chattanooga 84. If you come around to me and I don't answer, push me to the end and pick me up there. Thank you, Justin.
Justin, this monitor turned on
This
live captions.
MC865, CW16, Angel at
There's an Xbox in the upper right-hand corner that should make it evaporate.
Oh, thank you.
This is Dallas 20, WRKT 728, David, Southwest Paulding County. Check me in, guys.
This is 120 WRZL 542, Carmine, afternoon repeater in Fayetteville. Check me in and out.
This is Ted and Tucker. Second check-in to clarify my call sign. Call sign is Sierra Hotel Call 331.
I couldn't get any of that. It was on Peachtree.
I think that might have been, I don't know, I heard 3-3 something. I
Heard-
thought it was 338.
I heard Whiskey Sierra.
This is Atlanta 177, WSGL 241, Nelson into Cuba, checking in and out. This is WRUZ 979, Chattanooga 97, Aaron in Cleveland, Tennessee, checking in and out.
All right, let me go ahead and acknowledge this round of check-ins. Did anybody hear me acknowledge Atlanta 250 Dana high atop Mount Olympus?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
So
Because you said it just like that. You said high atop Mount Olympus. And in the log, I wrote on top of Mount Olympus. So that's why I remember.
okay, all right. So what you're saying is I didn't read it right?
Oh, no, you said it right. You just didn't read exactly what I wrote, but you did acknowledge it.
All right.
Is he giving you a hard time?
So we've got Dana high atop Mount Olympus. That would be the third time that I've mentioned Dana high atop Mount Olympus
In Dahlonega.
Atlanta 250.
Atlanta 250.
That would be Dana.
He is also Dana is also in the YouTube chat.
So all right, okay. So do we have Dana covered?
Dana is covered.
High atop Mount Olympus.
Some call him King of Simplex, but I think we have him covered.
Excellent.
On your log, do you see Dana?
I do.
Okay.
I
all
do.
right. All right. Very good.
All right. Okay, let me go ahead and run through this short list of YouTube check-ins as well. Since we're here, we have Columbus 31, Don in Columbus checking in on YouTube. Gainesville 26J, Flowery Branch. We have Gainesville 43, David in Winder. Atlanta 766, Jeff in Monroe. Atlanta 263, Rogers in Dunwoody. McDonough 77, Nathan in McDonough. We have a guest check-in from WRHY989, Bob in Salem, Massachusetts. Also, we have Atlanta 379, Scott in Sandy Creek, New York. We have Rome 27, Terry in Menlo. We got one more here. We've got
Two more.
Blue Ridge 64, Melissa in Blue Ridge. And Atlanta 830, Art in Dawsonville. All right. Did I get all the YouTubes?
You did.
All right. So that'll bring us to some RF check-ins. We had Gainesville 36. Robert in Gainesville is in tonight. Atlanta 849. Pamela in Duluth is in and out, as well as Atlanta 848. Ernest, also in Duluth, is in and out. We heard Chattanooga 84. Jim in Hickson is in tonight, but if he's not there when we call him, we're supposed to push him to the end of the list. So don't let me forget. In fact, maybe someone should make a note. CW16 Angel in Athens is in tonight. Dallas 20 David in Rockmart is in tonight. We have Noonan 120 Carmine in Fayetteville in and out. Atlanta 177 Nelson and Decula in and out. Chattanooga 97 Aaron in Cleveland in and out. Those are the check-ins we have at this time. Let's continue on with check-ins from any repeater.
Well, real quick, before we do, there was a station that I could not make out. At this moment, I don't even remember which repeater it came from, but the FCC call I believe I got was WRYC838. If that's you and you're hearing us and you're...
Look at the call sign directly above that one.
Well, it's the same one.
Isn't that interesting?
It is. That's Robert?
So was that maybe Gainesville 36 and 37 or something?
It could have been.
I'm not sure.
I didn't see that was right above that. Okay. Well, we'll figure it out.
All right. So Gainesville 36, if you would come back and let us know, was there an additional TAC number that you had called out, or did we just hear things that weren't even there? That could be.
It could be.
Yeah. We did have some funky chicken. So let's find out from Gainesville 36 if he's there.
Gainesville 36, this is Frank. The Robert part is the bill paying name, if you will, with the IRS, Robert Franklin. I go by the middle name, Frank. Anyway, this is Gainesville 36 WRYC 838, and not really sure how I can help you beyond that.
All right, Frank. I appreciate you helping me out with that. We'll try to remember that going forward, and see if we can get that right. One thing that would help is if you would go into go to our website and find the update information button at the North Georgia GMRS store, and just update the name in your file there. Just show us Frank instead of Robert, and then because that's where this data pulls from. And if it shows us Frank there, then we'll get it right every time. But if it shows something else there, we'll only get it right sometimes.
Part of the time, if we're lucky.
Yeah, and that's usually because you come back and let us know. So I appreciate you telling me, and I will try to get that right going forward. Okay, so thank you for clarifying that. I'm not sure what that was then with our second instance of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Call sign. We'll leave that as a blank line from now. That just helps to pad our numbers, so at the end of the evening it looks like we had more check-ins than we actually had.
You're right.
So we'll just, we've never been challenged by the auditors, so we can do whatever we want, I think. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and continue with additional check-ins. Any repeater anywhere. Net control standing by.
WSFR 920, Atlanta 306, George, Loganville, Georgia.
Fantastic.
WSFZ 865, CW16. Checking in and out, Justin. Checking in and out.
Okay, in and out. So he's up there. I'll get him his in and out.
Okay.
This is WRKR 868, Atlanta 130, Tom and Ackworth, checking in, checking out. This is Atlanta 968, WSDR 258, RC in Woodstock, checking in and out.
Oh, he's not. What did he just say?
Was it 868?
Atlanta 90, WSFX 464. Shane in Midtown, checking in and out.
I goofed it. I was looking at something else.
This is Atlanta 924 WSFE 395. I'm in and out.
All right, we had an RC in Woodstock, and we missed the TAC number there, RC. So if you would kind of get ready to come back and give us your TAC number one more time. But let me go ahead and acknowledge what else we have. We heard Atlanta 306 George in Loganville. We've got you marked as in. We have Atlanta 130 Tom in Ackworth, in and out. After that, we heard RC in Woodstock. Next, we have Atlanta 90 Shane in Atlanta, in and out. Atlanta 924 William in Jasper, in and out. And a couple of YouTube check-ins. We have Atlanta 374 Lamar in Dawsonville is YouTube check-in. And a guest check-in from Miko, WRYQ727 from upstate New York. Also, we have WRWY456 Dave, the Hillbilly Ham in Rogersville, Missouri. Thank you for those check-ins. And RC, can you come back with your tactical unit number, please?
Atlanta 967 is RC. Thanks, Justin. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Great signal coming in here. We just we just missed it is all. So And that happened a couple of times tonight. It's not that anybody's signal was really all that bad, except for that one guy in Columbus. We couldn't make him out. But
Ask RC if he wants to be in or in and out.
well, I mean, you got a microphone right there.
RC, do you want to be in or in and out for the net tonight?
I'm in and out. Thanks.
All right.
All right, we've got you marked accordingly. So tonight's topic is programming radios, and one of the things, considering when you're brand new to GMRS radio, it's not really obvious that you need to have an offset for a repeater. And the other thing that didn't make a lot of sense to me was the application of PL tones. Now, I knew a little bit about tones from other radio work that I've had in the past, but I didn't really know that much about them. I understood they existed, really was the limit of that, but I didn't really understand what the tones were supposed to do. So we'll talk a little bit about that tonight, and I wish that we had Julie here to perform that episode of Julie's Tips, because it's a good one. Then it talks a lot about the way that repeaters work. But I think one of the key things that we want to talk about is that, when your radio is programmed for a repeater, you program the PL tone, which might be a CTC-SS tone, or it might be a DCS tone. Mike, do you know what the differences are between those?
One is digital.
One is digital. So the CTC-SS is a continuous tone coded squelch system, and DCS is a digital coded squelch. So really, it's two different names for two different methods of doing the same thing, and that is controlling the squelch on a radio.
Now, when you key up, you don't hear a tone. So why do they call it a tone? What is it doing?
Well, there actually legitimately is a tone that's being transmitted with your signal. We label that tone as a sub-audible tone.
Sub-audible tone.
So that sub-audible tone isn't truly sub-audible, but our radios have filters built into them that know to filter out that low frequency tone, so that and that frequency typically is low enough that it really doesn't have much of an impact on the audio quality, because these are deep bass tones, and even the lowest vocal bass speaking person doesn't really speak at frequencies as low as the tones are. So we can filter all that out from what the speaker plays on your radio, and you don't really hear or notice that sub-audible tone is or isn't there.
And what is the tone's purpose? Why is it there?
So it's a coded squelch. All right. So as such, the performance of the function of that squelch is to tell a radio, or even force a radio to open up. So if a radio is programmed to listen for a particular tone, and that radio hears a signal that does not carry that tone, or that carries a different tone, that radio will actively ignore that signal.
That traffic.
It filters that traffic out, because without having a proper tone, it knows that traffic or that signal that's being played at that moment is not for me. I have to wait until I hear a signal that carries the proper tone, and when I do, as a repeater, if I'm a repeater and I hear a signal and it has my tone on it, then I'm going to repeat that signal. If I hear a signal that does not have my tone, I'm just going to stand there and do nothing. Let me break.
So it's like an access code then, kind of a way of thinking about it.
It's really the keys. It's the keys to the world of repeaters. I mean, it allows you to transmit, and it allows you to receive the repeater.
And that's the other end of the tone. So if you have that tone programmed into the receive portion of your radio, when the repeater retransmits that signal, it's going to retransmit that signal with a tone. And if you have the tone set up on the receive side of your radio, it will filter everything out. So the kids that are playing with their walkie-talkies down the street, their FRS radios or whatever, and somehow they've got it on the channel that you're monitoring. If they don't have the repeater's tone programmed into their radios, and chances are they won't, then you won't even hear that traffic. You may see the green receive light come on your radio, but your radio will ignore that traffic, and it will only play what it hears coming back with the correct tone from the repeater. So that's what our tones do. That's that they turn on the repeater. They tell the repeater that this radio signal is meant to be repeated, and then the repeater will go ahead and retransmit that signal. And then they tell your radio that this is a signal coming from the repeater or coming from an intended transmitter, and go ahead and open up the squelch and listen for whatever traffic that might be. Does that make sense?
Very clear. Very
All
clear.
right.
And that's why you have to program your radios.
And that's what we're programming them for. We're programming them mainly just to put our proper tones in, so that they'll activate the repeater, and so that they will filter out everything but the repeater on the receive side. That's the goal. That's our hope and our purpose for that.
And some radios are easier to program than others.
Yeah.
Some you don't program. Some you can do right on the radio. Some you've got to use a computer for, and that's what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah. So one of the things that you'll find in most of the inexpensive radios that you can buy on the internet, most of those radios can be programmed from the keypad. So you can go to the repeater pair that you're trying to operate, and you can enter in the tone that you want to program for that repeater pair right from the face panel. You have to follow the instructions, and that's where most of us fall down. Because, I mean, if you're anything like me and you get this thing that has to be assembled, the instructions are the things that you look at last.
That checks out.
When you think you're missing a part, or the darn thing just doesn't go together the way that you think it should, then if all else fails, find those instructions.
RTM.
I think there's more letters in that.
I left the letter out.
Julie's not here, so it's safe to use all the letters.
Okay. RTM, or read the manual.
Read the manual, and but that's what we need to start off with radio. Let me break. We need to start off with reading the manual, because it seems like many of these radios, despite the fact that they're built on the same architecture and often incorporate the same circuitry and the same chips and sometimes even the same body, they run on different firmware. And because of the firmware, the programming methodology might be a little bit different from one radio to another. So we really do need to check the manual. And for virtually all of these radios, you can find that manual online. You can do a Google search for that radio model number, and you can find the manual, and you can find the step-by-step instructions for adding in the tones for whatever repeater pair that you're trying to add in. And Mike, if you want to grab the North Georgia GMRS web page with the programming chart.
I keep forgetting I have that power to put that up on the screen.
You do. If you want to grab that, we'll talk about that here for just a moment, because on our website, nggmrs.org, you can navigate to a page where it shows all of our repeaters. It shows all of the frequencies that our repeaters operate on, and it shows the appropriate tones for those repeaters. Now, a lot of people say, well, why don't you just go to channel 18 or channel 20? Well, channel 18 is very common in some radios, but your channel 18 and my channel 18 may not be the same frequency, depending on how a given radio is programmed. So that's why we resist talking about channels, because although there are some standardized channels, it's not necessarily standard how that gets programmed into each and every radio. I think a lot of the newer radios have pretty well standardized on channel numbers, but the old heads like me, I have no idea what frequency channel 18 is. I would have to, if you tell me that we're talking about 650 or 675 or 625 or 550, if you tell me that, then I understand. But if you tell me what channel you're trying to talk on, I don't know how that corresponds to a frequency.
Yeah, I don't remember channels at this point either.
So that's something that I think that more of the new radios have kind of gotten good at standardizing on that. But when you get into Part 90 radios, channels and frequencies are fluid, and they don't necessarily jive with that. But you can see up on the YouTube page now, you can see the chart that we're talking about. And this chart includes all of the North Georgia GMRS repeaters, whether they're linked or not. And it also shows the frequency offsets that transmit and receive, and it shows the tones. And some of those are analog tones, where you just have the, like for instance, on the Monument repeater, 550, the Monument repeater, that tone is 141.3. So 141.3, that is the actual frequency, 141.3 hertz, that's being transmitted with your radio signal. Let me break.
Too, Justin, we're covering a lot of numbers, but the nice thing about it is once you get your tones entered, you don't normally have to go back. You're set and good to go.
That's true for a lot of radios, but there's a handful of radios that only offer 8 repeater pairs. So if you travel around the network at all, it's one thing to program your radio with the 8 closest, whichever ones are going to be closest to you. And in all honesty, most of us receive 1 or 2 or 3 repeaters from our home. Some of us have the luxury of being able to receive more than that because they live high atop Mount Olympus.
Can't relate.
From the salad bowl.
Yeah, can't relate.
So some of us have the ability to hear far and wide and access to a large number of repeaters. It used to be that we could hit Pine Log and Sassafras very well from here. But Pine Log is gone now, and Flagship replaces Sassafras. So I have good access to Flagship.
And in my case, in Marietta, it's dependent on the season. When you've got full trees and full of green, I hit different repeaters than I hit in the fall when it's clear trees and no clutter.
And that's something that we're very much going to learn about, especially on the Friday night at 9 operations. Propagation changes throughout the season. And weather conditions, and all sorts of things can have bearing on how a signal travels. But in terms of programming our radios, that's all pretty well straightforward. So the information that you need to program your radio to work on our repeater network is right here on this page. And this can be an excellent resource, the North Georgia GMRS webpage, for getting your radios programmed. And if you do have one of the radios that only has 8 repeater pairs, just know that if you keep a copy of this chart handy, or if you keep a shortcut on your phone, it's real easy to punch in another tone if you find yourself in a different corner of the region. If you're traveling to Knoxville or something of that nature, and you want to be able to hit those other repeaters for the day or for that trip, if you just have information available to you, and most of us carry a phone that can pull that information up, that's half the battle right there. So that's the data that you need for programming your radio. Let's talk about programming software a little bit.
Well, before we jump into that, let's talk, if you don't mind, talk about the offsets. Because in GMRS, the offset is standard between the transmit and the receive frequency. And so unless you're using a radio that I am unfamiliar with and haven't seen before, the radio should know that the offset is 5 megahertz up from the receive channel. Offset being one channel that you're listening on, your receive, and one channel that you're transmitting on. Let me break. And so when you're looking at this chart that Gary's got on the screen, you'll see a column for RX 462.550 and TX for transmit 467. They're always going to be 5 megahertz apart. Again, I haven't seen one, but maybe there's a radio out there that requires you to specify that. It'll always be 5 megahertz over the receive.
Well, Part 90 radios. You're going to have to spec that in a Part 90 radio.
Yeah, that's probably one. Yep.
If it's a Part 95 radio, it's going to default at 5 megahertz.
It knows,
and it's not something you can easily change. Maybe you can't change it at all.
Right.
But if you're programming a Part 90 radio, then you'll have to define what your offset is going to be and whether it's positive or negative.
Positive.
Offset.
Yep. That's the other part.
So that again, that's what this chart was built for, was the detailed programming. So some people say, we don't care about the offset because you can't change it. Well, you can in some radios, and so that's why that detail is included in these charts, because that is something that we do actually deal with, is with the Part 90 radios. We do need to know what the offset is.
Yes.
So
on commercial, yep.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this chart is if there's changes, it's updated. So this is a live chart, which is another advantage to going to the website and looking at this chart. If there's any changes, it's updated here.
It's a great point.
Well, yeah, and that's a great point. And you'll notice, too, that there's even provisions in the chart for future sites. So it seems like there's almost always something in the works. Even when Gary says it's going to be an easy year, there's no new repeaters in the works. I mean, because, Mike, you've heard him say that for a couple of years now.
Yeah. Last year, how many new ones did we bring on?
I almost 6, I think.
6 or 7, yeah.
So, yeah, we really didn't have any plans for anything new last year. Legitimately, at the beginning of the year, nothing in the books, nothing planned. And by the end of the year, we had a half a dozen of them in. So that could happen this year. I don't really expect it to. I'll be surprised if we do more than 2. So we have one on this chart that's indicated as a future site, and there's another one that shows that it's offline for maintenance.
It's going to be a relo.
Those 2 are the ones that I see happening this year.
Yeah.
So that off-site for maintenance repeater will be back on the air, I think, sometime this year.
Yes.
And as soon as we can get a tower up, that's really what we're waiting for.
That is it.
On that particular site.
And then on this list, Justin, where it says standalone, can you talk us through that? What does standalone mean?
Well, when you misbehave, sometimes you get told to go into the corner and stand alone there for whatever period of time. Some people refer to that as a timeout. I don't know anything about timeout. It's a concept I don't understand. But in this application, a standalone repeater is a repeater that does not link its traffic. So if it's standalone, any traffic on that repeater is isolated only to that repeater, which makes it different from most of the repeaters on the North Georgia GMRS network. Let me break. Most repeaters on the North Georgia GMRS network are linked repeaters. And as it is a linked repeater, any traffic that originates on a repeater that's local or distant to you gets repeated immediately across the entire network and rebroadcast on all of the repeaters. So when you key up on the repeater, your traffic is being carried across the better portion of 2 states and corners of 2 more states. And so you have a significant footprint when you can access the repeater. Even if you're accessing it with an HT, if you're on any of the linked repeaters, your footprint and your coverage area is enormous.
41 billion square centipedes, right?
Centipedes, that's right.
That's what it was?
Yeah.
And it goes back to our SOP of quick keying. That's why we encourage you to count, 1 1000, 2 1000 when you key up, because just look at the world that you're triggering when you key that mic.
That's right. There is some things that have to happen, and they happen in relatively short order, but they're not instant. So when you key your microphone, the first thing that happens is your radio transmits your signal with a subaudible tone to whatever repeater you're accessing. When that repeater hears your radio's signal with the correct tone, it will do two things. One, it will open up its transmitter and begin immediately repeating whatever it hears. And there's virtually no delay in that. That's pretty much instantaneous. But there is some delay in your repeater. At the same time that it begins transmitting, it also is activating a device that we call a node. That node then has to make a communications message with the core server. And so that takes a couple of milliseconds for that to happen. Then the core server has to process that information and then turn around and make contact with every other repeater on the network, which also takes a few milliseconds for that to happen. Those various nodes have to process that message request and begin passing traffic. So all of that can take maybe a second, depending on latency within the network. And so that's why we say when you key up, we'd like for you to pause briefly before you begin speaking, because anybody that you're talking to that's on a linked repeater might miss the first syllables of what you say. Mike, how many times would we ask for somebody to come back and give us a TAC number, and we hear the last number of the three numbers because they've keyed and they've given the number so rapidly that we've missed the first part of it.
Yeah.
And so that's part of why we need that delay built in there, because if it's a linked connection, there's going to be some latency in what comes across. Let me break. So all of that is how the repeater works and how that's relevant to what we need to know in order to properly program our radios for the repeater network. The next thing that we need to know is what software to use. So the software that we might use depends heavily on what particular radio we are working with. All right, so if you're working with a Bofang, or you're working with an Ocean, or you're working with a Radioddity, most of these radios can be programmed using an application called Chirp. And Chirp is a free download. It's open source software. It's continuously being enhanced and developed and refined and improved. So Chirp is really, really good in terms of keeping up with latest trends. And it's also really good at being intuitive and new guy friendly in terms of figuring out what to program and what to do. I think Chirp is super, super easy software to use. It reminds me very, very much when you get into and you're programming things in Chirp, it reminds me very much of the programming software for Kenwood radios. Kenwood and Chirp software, one is probably a derivative of the other.
It looks like a spreadsheet. So if you've ever used a spreadsheet before, I'm trying to see if there's a bigger picture of it, but it's just a big table. And down the left side, you'll have your channels, you'll have the transmit and receive frequencies, you'll have the tones, and each row is a separate channel in the repeater memory. And so if you want to program in the 20-something North Georgia GMRS linked repeaters, then you'll have 20-something rows with the corresponding frequencies and tones for each one.
Which, if your software allows for that, I think that's a great plan. Oftentimes I hear, a typical radio can be programmed with something like 200 channels. And if you have that capability, then program all of the repeaters that are anywhere near you. So, like, for instance, the Cherokee 575 repeater is one that you might program into your radio. There are other standalone and independent repeaters. North Georgia GMRS has a lot of repeaters, but we don't have them all. And there's one on Sweat Mountain. Do you remember what frequency Sweat Mountain's on?
No, I don't have that memorized.
I'm trying to think of the name of the group there. It's the Big Shanty Repeater Club, I think, is the name of the group that operates that repeater. but what the gist of what I'm saying is just program all of the repeaters that you are aware of within your traveling area, so that if you jump in a car and you decide you're going to run down to Albany, you've got repeater coverage between here and Albany, mostly on North Georgia GMRS, but there's going to be some other repeaters that you'll use between here and Augusta, between here and Knoxville, between here and Nashville. I'm not sure what repeaters. I know there are several around the Franklin, Tennessee area. There's a couple of them right in Nashville. I don't know what.
Not Nashville.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying other repeaters.
Other repeaters in
Okay,
Nashville.
my mistake.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
us. No,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
don't. We don't go. I kind of wish that we did, but we don't.
We've got Cades Cove.
We've got Cades Cove, which covers Pigeon Forge really, really well.
Yep. Starts to get into Knoxville.
Yeah, it does get a little bit, and we've got the Mount Roosevelt repeater that gets a little further into Knoxville.
Yes.
And so we've got those, but just put them all in your machine if you're able to, and that will give you much more. I've probably timed out a minute and a half ago.
Yep.
All right, I probably timed out a minute and a half ago, but we were just talking about putting all of the repeaters that you think you might be driving within range of. But the other thing that you might consider doing, if you have zones on your radio, consider programming a zone for North Georgia GMRS repeaters and another zone for neighboring repeaters. And if you travel to, like we travel to Indiana from time to time, so we have a group of Indiana repeaters. You might consider a group of just the repeater pairs that you can maybe rapidly put tones on. If you needed a generic bank of repeaters, that's how the radios are programmed that come from Hobbit Communications. So if you buy a Part 90 radio from Hobbit Communications, it comes pre-programmed with zones that cover specifically for North Georgia GMRS, and then there are South Carolina. I think there is in Alabama. There are a couple of other zones in there with other area repeaters. And then there is a DIY zone that allows you to just pull up a repeater and you can punch in whatever zone, whatever tone that repeater requires. And then when you shut that radio off and turn it back on, it defaults back to what it was prior. So it's not something that gets permanently programmed, and it's real easy to put that back in again. So something to consider. And if programming radios is something that you find very challenging, then Hobbit Communications is probably your best bet.
Turnkey, right out of the box.
Yeah, so definitely consider going to Hobbit Communications and getting a look at what's available there. Those are great radios that come with a 3-year warranty, and it's a great option.
It's neat too, Justin. When you're in vacation mode, because our neighbors to the south in Florida have a pretty active GMRS network, and it's always neat to plug in those repeaters. If you're traveling south, it's just another way to connect with other folks that are using the radios.
Well, and that's true, and it's also fun too to hear people that are traveling through our region come on the air and hey, I'm passing through, and just I've heard about you guys, wanted to say hi, and that's kind of neat to see that traffic happen too, from this area. So as cool as it is that I think hearing guests on our network, I imagine it's probably something equally cool for other operators to hear people traveling through and just saying, hey, well, we're here. So, good stuff. All right.
We should break, and then I want to talk real quick about code plugs.
Okay, let's do that.
So, if you are on the North Georgia Facebook group, will you throw that on the screen, Gary?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll get to see this right now. But we have a files section. This is unofficial. This is not put out by the network. It's supported by our members. But if you need a code plug for a particular radio, there is a good chance, if it's a common radio commonly in use, that you'll be able to find a code plug for that radio in the files section of our Facebook page. Now, what is a code plug?
What is a code plug?
It's a plug with lots of codes in it.
Does it have a cord attached to it? Most plugs have a cord on them.
No cord on this one. It's a file that you download that contains all of the repeater frequencies and tones that we were talking about earlier. So if you're looking at the screen on YouTube right now, the first one in the list is a TID radio TDH3. Looks like it's got a date of January 14th, 2025. Was uploaded by
Atlanta
557 Ed. So he's made that code plug for that specific radio. I don't know if it's made with Chirp or something else, but if you need a shortcut and need the file to upload to your TID radio TDH3, you might be able to find that right there in the files section.
That's a great resource. I really hadn't thought about that. I'm aware that it's there, but I've never used it. But that could be, and what's cool about that is you've got somebody who's gone through and they've entered in a number of the repeaters that are North Georgia GMRS repeaters, and probably a handful of others. But that's not the end of it. You can still modify that code plug before you upload that to your radio.
That's right. But it'll give you the North Georgia repeaters as a starting point, and then if you want to add in other individual frequencies or repeaters in other areas, you can add that to the file as well.
Yeah, and it saves a lot of data entry. So when you're building out these code plugs, there's a lot of repetition in entering in the name of the repeater, the frequency, the offset, the tone, and then the next one, the name of the repeater, the frequency, the offset, the tone, the next one, the name of the repeater, and just on and on. So so when someone's built out a code plug, they've done a lot of that tedious stuff for you, and now if you can just go in and check that code plug, get rid of repeaters you think you'll never use, add in a few that you wish that were already there, then that's the easy button right there. So and there looks like there's quite a few files.
There are. I've seen TID radios, BTECs, Baofangs, Wushans, Kenwood.
There's the Radioddity DB25.
Radioddity. Did I already say BTEC?
Yeah, I even saw a manual or two is listed there.
There's
the
a
BTEC manual.
TK860.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a manual too. Yeah, very nice.
A couple of Anytones in there.
It's a really good library.
So check that out if you need just a little help getting started as a jumping off point.
And that's the files section of our Facebook page.
It is. We should break.
Very good. All right. So with that, there are a variety of different softwares for a variety of different radios. So, like for instance, the Baofeng radios, I think they drive you right into Chirp.
Yes.
When you buy that radio, it doesn't come with software per se, but in the manual it tells you to download Chirp and use Chirp. If you buy a Kenwood radio, it's not something that really necessarily comes with software. But if it's an older Kenwood radio, like for instance the TK880, that software is readily available and usually can be found for free, and it interfaces and programs very, very similar to how Chirp programs. However, when you get into the newer Kenwood radios, that software is it's licensed to a specific computer. So you can't just make a copy of that and sell that software. You have to actually buy a license for each computer that software is installed on. So as a radio shop, Gary has to figure out which computer he's going to put the software on, because if that computer dies, he can't just copy the software and run a different computer. That software is married to that machine. He has to actually buy a license to be able to put that software on another machine. So when you buy a radio, he'll program it for you because he already has the software, but he's not going to necessarily send you out the door with a copy of the program so that you can make changes to that file yourself. You're welcome to make a purchase of that license, but it's not cheap. And similarly with Motorola radios and the rib that you need to program those radios.
Oh, yeah.
That CPS software is proprietary for each radio. So if you have 2 or 3 or 4 different Part 90 Motorola radios, you're going to need 2 or 3 or 4 different versions of software to program those radios. Now, the file for programming the radio may be compatible across those different softwares, but you're going to need a specific software for each specific model of radio that you have. And when it comes to programming ICOM radios, I really honestly don't know because I've never programmed an ICOM. We have a handful of people in the group that have them and have software and can speak to that. So when we come to them in the roster, we'll ask about programming ICOM radios.
Got to get those monitoring frequencies in there.
That's right. So anything else we need to cover before we go to the top of the roster?
I think the last thing is just to harken back to the announcements tonight. If you need help with this and you're one of those that would rather do it in person, the Meet and Geek, I don't remember the date. Is that next week?
Stand by while I access
the Meet and Geek
that information
gathering that Ed, Atlanta 557, is putting on is one of many good get-togethers where you can get a little help in person, bring your radio, and
Yeah, that was coming up next week.
Tuesday, March 11th.
there you go.
Yep.
Tuesday,
So,
March 11th.
That's at noon at the Old Town Tavern and Grill, 2500 Cobb Parkway Northwest, right around the corner from the McCollum Airport. The Meet and Geek.
I love that name.
So reach out to Ed, Atlanta 557, on the air or via email at WRQG806 at gmail.com. Let's break. Probably got timed out on most of that. But anyway, it's the Kennesaw Meet and Geek at the Old Town Tavern and Grill, 2500 Cobb Parkway Northwest. Send an email to ed at WRQG806 at gmail.com and let him know what radio you're bringing so that he can be sure he has the correct cable and software for that radio. All right, let's go ahead to the top and start off with conversations with our members. Let's see, where are we at? Well, looks like first we have Mr. Simplex, Gainesville 58, Jonathan in Oakwood. Jonathan, do you have any comments, suggestions, or questions for programming GMRS radios?
Mr. Simplex might have signed off.
No, all right. We're going to go ahead and show Jonathan as in and out and continue on. We have a guest check-in from WSSG 331 Ted in Tucker. Ted, do you have any questions or comments or any programming advice?
From Peachtree.
Yeah. I don't think that was Ted.
I don't think so.
All right. We're going to go ahead and show Ted as in and out, and we're going to keep right on moving. Next, we have Gainesville 26 Jay from Flowery Branch, but he's in Columbus. Jay, do you have any questions, comments, or any programming advice?
Good evening, not afternoon now. Not really. I'm very fortunate. I've got mine pretty well set up. I did make a comment on the chat that the Columbus machine, every so often, it will just go to static, shut down, and then it will come back up. In fact, it did that towards the beginning of the net. So I don't know if you're aware of that or not. I'm just letting you know for information's sake, something I've noticed down here. I'll give it back to net control. This is KE. I'm sorry, not K. Wrong call sign. Oh, gracious. Gainesville 26.
All right, Jay. Yeah, we may very well have a timeout timer configured improperly on that repeater. We typically can run to about 3.5 minutes on most of the network, and we try to watch that. Although tonight, I can tell you for sure, I've gone over that a handful of times.
Only like twice.
Only twice?
In the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. So there's a good chance that that is what happened, and that's why. It's 100% Mike's fault because he's giving me the time to break hand signal too late.
We need to get a light. Like we have the on air and the receive light. We need to get a break light.
Yeah. I've got a little timer board. And my idea is to tie that into the PTT button so it begins counting down from 3.5.
Yeah.
And when we see that get to 0, then we'll know that that they can't hear us anymore.
That's right.
So yeah, I'm just one of those things. One of these days maybe I'll get to it. So we'll see what happens. But I hear your comment, Jay, and I understand we probably are hitting that timeout timer on the Columbus machine. It might be set a little bit shorter than the rest of the repeaters. So we also have a timeout function within the linking core. We've asked Atlanta 810 to find that and turn it off a number of times, but I think he enjoys the fact that I hit the timeout timer. So we can't get him, and I can't find that value to it's 100% dependent upon John finding it and taking it away. And I'm pretty sure he knows right where it's at. So we're stuck. All right. Well, thank you, Jay. We're going to continue on. Next, we have Cherokee 575 Alex. Alex, did you have any questions or comments for the net tonight? All right, we're going to go ahead and continue on. We'll show Alex as in and out and go next to McDonough 22 Tim in Stockbridge. Tim, do you have any questions or comments? I understand you have a trip coming up. You're going to Washington State?
Yes, sir. Flying out of here about 10 o'clock. Well, I'll be flying out from the airport. My flight leaves at 10:06 or 10:05, I think it is, Saturday morning. Going to Washington State to visit my son and my grandkids, whom I haven't seen in forever, and be there for about a week and fly back the following Saturday. But anyway, before I get into the programming thing, let me break. Thought I would, for the purposes of illustration, just kind of draw a difference between two basic types of radio that we generally talk about, which number one would be your commercial type radios, which is be like your Motorola's and ICOMs and the Kenwoods, of course, which are Part 90 radios. Those are your commercial brand radios. These are used in first responders, dog catcher, dump truck, police, fire, first responders, commercial businesses, and so on and so forth. The radios, and the programming on those is different because you can put in tons and tons of different repeaters and stuff in there, and put in all the tones that you like, opposed to the consumer brand radios. Let me break. Which are your Part 95 FCC approved radios like Baofeng or Bufang, Wouxun, Radio Oddity, any tone, and so on and so forth. And for the most part, the Part 95 radios, they come with the frequencies hard programmed in, which means they cannot be changed with even if you're using your software. In a Part 90 commercial radio, you can arrange the frequencies and repeaters any way you want to, move them around, up, down, put in different banks of things. With your consumer brand radios, you're mostly stuck with the way that they're programmed in. Although some of the consumer brand radios, like some of the radio oddities and Anytones and so on and so forth, they come with 2 or 3 banks of repeaters, but there are only 8 repeater pairs, which means you can only program in 8 repeaters on that particular radio. But now, like my radio oddity GM30 has 4 extra banks of 8 repeater pairs in it that you can program so that you're traveling across the country, and you're going to have I'm on the Madonna repeater, which is a 725 megahertz. So I might hit Huntsville, Alabama, and there'll be another repeater up there with 725, but it's got a different PL tone than the McDonough repeater does, which is a digital repeater. Huntsville might have a CTCSS or analog code in it. So, but basically that's the 2 different kinds of radios. And you spoke about the different kinds of programming. For Kenwoods and commercial radios, it's pretty generally best to use the proprietary software that goes with those. I found out Chirp does not work very well on Kenwoods. Now, I haven't programmed any ICOMs or Motorola's, but the functionality just isn't there. There's a lot of missing things you can't do on the Kenwood that you need to do that you actually have to have the Kenwood software for, and I think they probably made it that way on purpose. But the Chirp program does work for most all of the Part 95 radios, like the Anytones, Baofangs, and so on and so forth. So you need to, make up your mind exactly what kind of radio that you want. If you want a commercial brand radio, if you need a whole lot of different slots in there for different repeaters or for other reasons or whatever. Plus the fact that the commercial radios, Kenwoods, are made to last practically forever and will probably be here when there's nothing left on the planet but roach bugs and storms or whatever. Let me break. But I've learned to program several different types of radios. If it's all pretty simple. Once you get in program 1 or 2, it becomes pretty instinctive as you go through there. There's a lot of numbers and things in there that I don't understand. I mostly just ignore those and put in the tones. Mostly what I'm doing is put it in tones, although some of the repeaters, radios that I've programmed for people, I've had to start and build a total, new code plug for them. And a couple of those are uploaded onto the Facebook page there in the file section, as y'all mentioned previously, because I like to help people out, like to make it easy for them. It can take an hour or 2 to sit here and put in every frequency and every tone individually and build a code plug from scratch. So to save other people from the problem of having to do that. And like you said, you can download the code plug and then you can make individual changes in it, and that prevents you having to go through there and do it all individually, one by one. But anyway, that's probably about all I got. Just kind of thought I'd draw people's attention to that fact, especially the new guys that are coming in. And also just want to make a note of the Midland brand. A lot of newbies come in and they want to grab hold of a Midland right away, and they don't understand that the Midland only has 38 CTCSS tones as opposed to almost every other radio on the planet that has 50 tones in it. So that means some of the repeaters may not work for you if you buy a Midland. So be careful what you buy. Buyer beware. search out the information first on what you are going to purchase and know that that's what's needed. But Midlands are very basic, instinctive radios for beginners that have commercial brand radio prices on them. And so you can tell by the sound of my voice, I have no use for a Midland. So take that for what it is. Back to net control.
Well, thanks for all of that, Tim. You covered a lot of ground and filled in a lot of holes along the way. So, and it's also good to hear the same thing from a little different perspective. So, and you've done a lot of that. But just to emphasize your final point here, the thing that I would like to note about these Midland radios, as you pointed out, there is a lack of availability for tones. The Midland radio does not include all of the tones, but what's more, the tones that are there are a little bit convoluted in that you can't just directly program. I just dropped some stuff. You can't just directly program those tones into the radio. There's a conversion chart that you have to reference that's proprietary to Midland, which adds a level of confusion sometimes, and that is a barrier in some cases to people being able to get on the air because they can't comprehend that table, that Midland cross-reference table that you have to use for programming tones. And the other thing, and you pointed out very well, is that for the money that you're going to spend on a Midland radio, you could have an NX 1300 or an NX 1800 radio, which is a much, much higher performance radio, a factory 3-year warranty. It comes pre-programmed, is going to be a radio that will last you a lifetime. These commercial grade radios are meant to be serviced in police cars and fire trucks and dump trucks and taxi cabs and, places where the radio gets left on all the time, places where the radio may be subjected to extreme heat or cold, places where the radio may be subjected to water, or other forms of abuse, and these radios just hold up. They just work. And so when you get into a commercial grade radio, you're getting into something entirely different than what's available from whoosh. I can't even say it.
Be
right.
careful.
The W radios or the Bofeng radios or the Radiodity radios, those are consumer grade radios, and they just will not tolerate the abuse that a Part 90 radio will tolerate and continue to work flawlessly even after having been treated rough. So good points. Appreciate all of that, Tim. Have a safe trip on your venture out to the West Coast, and hope that you have a great time with the family out there. Enjoy those grandkids, and just soak up that family time. That's cool stuff. Next on our list, we have from high atop Mount Olympus. Is that number 6?
That's
Atlanta 250.
That's correct.
Dana from the top of Mount Olympus. Dana, did you have any questions or comments or any advice or recommendations for programming radios?
Well, first, good evening, Justin, Mike, and Gary. And, I have some comments, but I don't know if you want to hear them. Anyway, just one important thing. You download one of those code plugs, from the Facebook page. You open it up, you upload it into your radio, you program your radio, but during that time you make some subtle changes to personalize it. That now becomes your personal code plug. Save it under a separate name and date. Should you ever need it, you will have a backup to exactly the way your radio was before whatever incident happened. Let me break. The second thing is, be wary of what version software you have in your new radio. Any tone. They have version 1, version 2. You upload a version 2 code plug into version 1 software, you're going to do what they call brick the radio. It'll be pretty much no good from that point on. So those two things being said, you guys have covered an astronomical amount of information, which is great. I can't really think of anything else to add to it, and back to you guys.
Well, that's a very good point. And another thing to consider in terms of firmware, especially with Part 90 radios, GMRS radio is one of the last places in the RF world where we can operate in wideband. And so what's nice about wideband is it allows for a better fidelity of audio. The narrowband radios the narrowband channels that we operate in on 2 meter and in the commercial side of things don't have as good an audio fidelity as the wideband and GMRS has. But the other thing is, not only is it a matter of fidelity, but when you're transmitting an RF signal in wideband versus an RF signal in narrowband, you're actually putting more energy into the airwaves with a wideband signal. And it may be the same wattage, but the amplitude is slightly different, and the modulation is slightly different, and the overall energy is slightly higher in GMRS than it would be in anything comparable that is a narrowband signal. So the wideband privilege that we enjoy today is probably not here to stay. At some point, we will most likely be forced into narrowband, but we're not there yet, and it's not something I've heard the FCC make mention of. It's just something that when you take a look over the horizon and you see that we are the only radio service left that's in wideband, it's just a matter of time. So all of that is to say that if you update the firmware on your Part 90 radio, you may be updating yourself into narrowband, and that's a one-way ticket. One of the rules that Part 90 radio manufacturers face is that if there is a wideband violation, the FCC doesn't fine the operator. The FCC fines the radio manufacturer. So that's why Kenwood and Motorola and ICOM are so hardcore about not allowing radios to operate in wideband. And in Motorola speak, they call it a wideband entitlement. You have to acquire the entitlement to be able to use a radio in wideband. And you can do that. Sometimes you have to purchase that entitlement, and in order to be able to purchase that entitlement, you have to be able to justify how you're going to use the radio and why you need it. In commercial applications, like for instance, the radios that come from Hobbit Communications are all wideband enabled. However, once those radios are programmed in a narrowband programming scheme, they're not coming back. So that's something you have to be careful about. If you buy your radio from Hobbit and then you take it to another dealer to have it programmed, if they don't have the capability of programming it in wideband, they could mess your radio up. So be very, very careful about who programs your radio and that the wideband is maintained. Let's break. Now, a narrowband radio will still work on the network. You will be able to reach the repeaters. You just won't sound very good, and you may have a penalty in terms of audio clarity and range. But it'll still work. But those are the things that you should be concerned with if you're operating narrowband in the GMRS wideband world. So thanks for bringing that up, Tim. I'm sorry, Dana. Where are we at? Yeah, we're at Dana. Thanks for bringing that up. And definitely the firmware can be an important aspect of programming your radios. My advice is don't update the firmware unless you absolutely know that the new version of firmware carries features that you're going to have to use. Don't update the firmware. Because let's face it, in the GMRS world, what are we? We are not a digital mode. We don't do tones. We don't do CW. We don't do... All we are is voice. That's all we do is phone on radio. So we don't have privileges like amateur radio operators have to operate in several different modes. No digital modes in GMRS. So what is that firmware going to do for us? Probably nothing in terms of how the radio operates.
Unless there's a problem with the radio that the firmware is intended to fix, and that doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
But maybe with a brand new radio, they miss something out of the factory and they have to issue a firmware update. But that's about the only reason I could think of that you should do that.
Yeah, and if you've got the latest firmware and you go to update firmware in an old radio, and it doesn't have the processor to deal with that software, like you said, you'll brick it. It will be good for paperweight.
It's a paperweight,
and that's
door
about
stop.
it. You can stop doors. You can throw it off of a bridge to see how big of a splash it makes when it hits the water. But don't do that because we don't need that junk in our rivers. But in any case, that's really about all it's good for once that's happened. I don't know that. I mean, in some cases, you're not even be able to going to recover it by sending it back to the manufacturer. Bricking a device with a bad firmware update is all too common, and basically what you've done is you've taken that machine's operating instructions and replaced it with a set of operating instructions that it cannot perform. And since it doesn't have the old ones anymore and can't perform the new ones, you get nothing. So that's a bad move. Be very, very careful about that. Do you have anything else for us, Dana?
Well, I did have something else, but it was fleeting and then has since left my mind.
Happens to all of us.
Oh yeah. We, I think we've all been there. So, all right. Well, if it comes back to you, you can bring it back in the into the comments there at the end of the program. So with that, let's move on. Next, we have on the list Atlanta 403, Bobby at the Vortex. Bobby, do you have any questions or comments? And can you tell us about anything that we need to know when it comes to programming I can only monitor radios?
Very funny, very funny. Well, I got a question. When are you going to take a bite out of that cookie that's been laying on your desk all night?
He's got a point.
But, Tim did a good job, and you guys did a good job of covering all the ins and outs and the difference between software and firmware and, the code plugs and all that. And, you got to remember with most of those code plugs available on our Facebook page are all for Chirp, and if you're like I don't download, you don't see me downloading any ICOM code plugs because unless you have the ICOM software, you're not going to be able to use the code plug anyway. And I mean a lot of that stuff is specific for that, but. Like I said, Tim did do a good job covering most of the facts for the new people with about radios and programming. And sorry, I just timed out, but I don't know. I don't have too much to add. Like I said, I'm mostly an ICOM guy. Well, you guys know that, and that's about it. It's a great net tonight, though. I mean, this is all a very interesting subject.
I lost my PTT button. Yeah, thanks for that, Bobby. And I suppose we did see a couple of instances of Kenwood software in the files section on the Facebook page. I didn't notice any Motorola, and I didn't notice any ICOM, and probably for the same reason. the Motorola code plug isn't going to do you any good unless you have the CPS for whatever radio you have, and each model radio is going to have a different version of CPS for a Motorola radio. So the bigger challenge there is just getting a hold of the CPS, and probably, like, for instance, Atlanta 5.7 has done all the programming on my Motorola radio. That's the Tiki Bar radio. So he's come by a couple of times, and he's provided the programming with the wideband entitlement to make sure that that radio operates as it's supposed to on the North Georgia GMRS network. But he's done all the programming on that radio. Each time there's been a need for a change, I think I need to have him come by and put the Cherokee 575 machine in that radio. Yeah, that's...
You're almost, for the Motorola's anyway, it's been my experience that you're almost better off just finding a dealer and working with them to get it updated.
Yeah, well, Andrew is my dealer.
There you go. There you go.
So
there's
he
Scott's up in the Chattanooga area.
Yeah.
I think there's a few others around.
And so in that circumstance, I don't necessarily have a code plug that I've saved, because Andrew will save the day whenever I need a code plug. So
there you go.
That's the intent there. I got a couple of ICOM radios laying around here someplace, and I should pass those off to Bobby. I don't know. I think one of them has like 4 channels. It's an old radio, but I mean, in this application, 4 channels, that would give me Ball Ground, Monument, Flagship, Cherokee 575. I don't think I can hit anything else from here.
Oh, you'd be good.
So 4 channels is actually, I mean, for a lot of us, 4 channels is, as a base radio, is all you need. Now, if it's a mobile, 4 channels is going to leave you disappointed. But don't be afraid of buying those older radios that are very limited in number of channels. In fact, the radio, no, I've changed that radio. The radio that used to be in the barn, the green barn, that was a 2-channel radio.
Oh.
So we had I don't remember. I think that was Sassafras and Pine Log, and of course Flagship is on the same frequency that Sassafras was on, but the radio would say SA 5 or something like that, and that was the Sassafras. The other one was PL for Pine Log, and that's all the characters that were available in this. I think there were 3 characters in the display. Maybe it was 4. Not very many. Let's break. So good stuff, Bobby. Did you have anything else to follow up with?
No, not too much else, but you guys covered it pretty well tonight. And like you said, a lot of these the high-end radios that we all use are proprietary software, and unless you go out and look for it and do your thing, it's hard to find that stuff. And what Tim said before about Chirp, yeah, a lot of the ICOMs and the Kenwoods, you can program on Chirp now, but you can only put the frequencies and the tones and what have you on. You don't get any of the ability to program any of the buttons and all the extra functions that's only in the software for that radio or that brand of radio, so that's about it, but this is an excellent night tonight and net tonight, and I hope a lot of the new people are listening to this, so, they get an understanding of what they're getting in. And it's really not that hard. It's, it's really easy, so, and I keep timing out Joe's radio here, but all right, I'm going to throw it back to you guys. Good net tonight. Outstanding.
Very good. Well, thank you for that, Bobby. It looks like I missed. Is that Ted in Tucker looking for a chance to come in and make a comment?
Yeah, Ted. You've got a few more between there, though.
Well, we went past him earlier.
Yes.
Okay.
He did. He chimed in on YouTube that he was in a bad location and he'd like to try again.
Okay. Well, let's try Ted now. and see if Ted has any comments for tonight's program. Maybe he's in a better location. I see he's standing by in the chat, so that's why.
He said it was his first day using GMRS, so
Oh, fantastic.
I figure we'll give him another shot.
Yeah, we'd love to get you in here. All right, Ted, go ahead. And I'll tell you, this is a great opportunity, too, because being brand new, he's likely experienced many of these challenges in programming a radio. So this is the perspective that I think a lot of new users are faced with. Even if it's somebody who's experienced radio operator, like has come from the ham world, sometimes transitioning to what we do in GMRS is a little bit of a curveball. Wideband, for instance, the positive offset.
Yeah.
Things that are just different that we do that they may not expect. So, Ted, do you have any comments for the net?
Yeah, thanks, guys. First of all, am I readable?
Beautifully. Yeah.
Yeah, you're loud and clear with just a little bit of hiss in the background, but you're well over it.
Okay, thanks. Very good. Yeah, I was just going to say that I bought a Baofeng a couple of weeks ago, and as far as programming goes, I had a blister pack of, FRS, GMRS radios that I bought years ago, and this Baofeng has a frequency counter on it, and I was able to transmit from the little...
He had a 30-second timeout timer. Looks like.
Not sure if you can copy me, Ted, but it looks like you've got a remarkably short timeout timer at about 30 seconds. So keep that in mind and just reset frequently, and I think we can get through this. But continue on.
If he's still talking, he's not going to hear you.
All right, Ted, are you back with us yet?
Affirmative. Were you able to hear that last transmission?
So it looks like you've got probably a 30-second timeout timer on that radio. So go ahead and
heard the first 30 seconds.
We heard the very first part of that, and then you dropped out. So go ahead and come back with that, but just remember to cycle every half minute or so because your radio will drop out. That's a setting you probably can change, but if it's an HT, you might not want to. 30 seconds is a good value for an HT to keep you from overheating the finals on that radio. So come on back and let's try this again.
Okay, very good net control. Where did I drop off? And I'll start where I left off.
Where did he drop off?
He had gotten a Baofeng, and I don't remember much after that.
Well, we know that you got the Baofeng, but we don't know much beyond that. So whatever you were trying to convey about programming that radio, go on ahead.
Okay, I was just saying that this radio has a frequency counter on it.
There we go.
And I was able to hit the push-to-talk button on my blister pack FRS, GMRS radios, and was able to program those frequencies into this for simplex purposes.
That's good.
Oh, very good. So, and that's also, some of those radios also have the ability, boy, I'm having a tough time talking tonight, the ability to sniff out a tone. So they can listen to a repeater. You see the green light come on, and it'll show you what the PL tone is on that repeater. Then you can add that into your radio and be able to operate that repeater. Most, but not all, most repeaters will use the same tone for transmit and receive. So once you know what that tone is that's coming back to your radio, if you put that same tone on the receive side of your radio, you'll be able to transmit into that repeater most of the time. It's not a guarantee, but it's a pretty good chance.
You got a good shot
that's going to work for you. There's not that many split tone repeaters out there. It's an option, but it's not very widely exercised.
Okay, that's good to know. I appreciate the information. It's been a great net, and this is WS8G331, and I'm clear.
All right, Ted. Well, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, and look forward to hearing you on the air again real soon. Next on my list, I have Gainesville 26J in Columbus. Understand that we were dropping out. Have we gotten any better, Jay, since earlier in the net? We've been trying to watch the timer a little bit closer.
Yeah, it's I don't think I've heard any dropouts. Maybe one since we talked before. So yeah, I think it's only one that I know of.
All right, good deal. Well, Jay, do you have any questions or comments about programming radios?
No, you already asked me that, but no, I'm pretty good as far as the programming and all of that is concerned. So, and I'm getting tired. I've had a long day, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and sign. You guys have a great evening. Back to net control. Gainesville 26.
All right, yeah. Free Salad's over here pointing out the fact that I got lost in the log. And
it happens. It happens.
So that's where we're at. But thanks for playing along tonight. Understand it's getting late, and I got you. We've only got a couple more left here to get through, so hopefully we can do that, and everybody can get off to the rest of their evening. Excuse me. I thought I could get through that before that cough would come, but it surprised me. But anyway, it's time now for Atlanta 256 Chuck in Dawsonville. Chuck, do you have any questions about programming Holly's radios? Chuck's a bit of a wild card.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's
he might be doing dishes,
in or out, or
taking out the trash, vacuuming. He's a multitasker.
All right. All right, we're going to go ahead and show Chuck as in and out and continue on with CW57 operator Bruce in Stevens. Bruce, did you have any questions or comments about programming radios? All right, we're going to show Bruce as in and out and continue on with Gainesville 36. Frank in Gainesville. Same question. Any questions or comments? Any advice about programming radios? All right. Again, we're going to show Frank as in and out and continue right along. This often happens once we get past 9 o'clock. I think our audience drops off. Folks get tired and they move on to other things. Completely understand. Nonetheless, we're going to see who else is still standing. How about Chattanooga 84 Jim in Hickson? Jim, do you have any questions or comments about programming or any advice you'd like to offer? All right, we're going to put a pause on Jim. He made a comment to push to the end if he didn't answer, so we're going to do that. We'll come back to Jim after a bit, and that'll bring us to Dallas 20 David in southwest Paulding County. David, did you have any questions or comments for the net?
evening, guys. One thing to remember about the old commercial radios is some of them actually share programming software, like the Kenwood TK-880, which is just a tank of a radio. I think we've all got one or have had one. They share the programming software for the TK-380 handheld.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have one software for two. The Kenwood 8180 shares the software for the 3180 handheld HT. So if you're looking into some of those, you might want to try and match up some radios with your mobile unit and your HT. That way you can have the same programming software for it. But also to remember that programming software on my stuff, some of the older ones that I've had, will not work on Windows 11. So that's the only thing about the older legacy-style radios. You got to have an old legacy computer to go along with it.
Yes. Somewhere in the archives of storage around here, I have a brand new, in-the-box DOS machine with 6.1.
Really?
Yeah.
That's unique.
Still sealed in the box.
Sealed in the box.
It's a rack mount. It's like 6 rack units high.
Wow.
It's a monster. It's
you know, this is a total rabbit hole for a total different time, but remind me to tell you about the Computer Museum of America.
Yeah?
Have you been?
No.
It's over in Roswell.
Okay.
I went today.
Oh.
Amazing. You're talking about 6 rack tall DOS units.
Wow.
I'll have to catch you up on that.
I once had a Microvax.
Yeah?
And, it was in 3 racks. And there's nothing micro about it.
No, that's huge.
The hard drive was a 10 megabyte hard drive, and it probably weighed about 30 pounds.
Yep.
The platters were about 8 inches round. It was a traffic control machine for the railroad.
Wow.
And we took it out of service. I kept it around for the longest time. One of our vendors actually asked if they could have it. And railroad being the railroad, you can't give anything away.
No.
So we ended up selling it to them, I think, for $1 or something ridiculous.
Okay.
A token amount. And they were able to use it for research and for support of customers they still had that were still using that technology after we'd moved off of it. We upgraded from that Microvax mini mainframe to Windows 95 machines.
I was going to ask if you went to AS400 next.
Yeah.
But Windows 95.
Windows 95.
That's a big step up.
Hell yeah. Yeah. We ran Windows 95 until about 2008.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't even move to Windows 98.
No, we did not. The client machines, we upgraded the client machines to XP, but all the servers were Windows 95.
Okay.
And then eventually, towards the end, we ran 2003, the server 2003 software, but for the longest time, Windows 95.
Wow.
So, yeah. And that's another quirk with some of these older software applications. They're not going to run on modern operating systems. They're not going to run on your Chromebook. They're not going to run on your fancy Apple tablet. You're going to have a computer that runs. Maybe you have to find an old XP machine that's not been updated. And what's cool about this is you can install the software on that old XP machine. You do not have to connect it to the internet. Mm-hmm. It can be a standalone, no Wi-Fi, no Ethernet, no connectivity machine. So you don't have to worry about being compromised with the viruses and things like that. You can let that machine be just a programming station for that style and type of radio, and you can actually have an older computer with quite a large number of programming software options in it. Let me break. Nice try, but we'll call that one a fail. And in any case, those those old computers can be handy to have around. So if you've got one in a closet somewhere, it might be worth breaking it out. If you've got an old laptop and a battery is just shot, that's okay. Just keep it plugged in where you're using it, and then let it shut down and stow it away when you're done. It'll be there the next time you need it, and that's not a bad way to make use of some of those older machines. You probably noticed when you went to your last Hamfest that there was at least a table or two of people that were just selling computers. Not the latest, greatest, but
that's kind of not the point.
The oldest, greatest.
Yeah.
That's why those machines are sought after, is because we need them for programming some of our commercial radios.
So our guest Miko, that's usually with us on YouTube in New York, just wrote a comment that says DOS is a perfect computer that will never die. It'll run forever, and he still has one.
That's fantastic.
So
if you need a replacement for that, we can talk, because I have brand new, sealed in the box. Actually, this was a
6U rack mount.
Yeah, this was a railroad machine. I was moving it from Fort Wayne to a place, I think it was Bluefield, West Virginia. I don't remember for sure, but anyway, we had a surplus of them in Fort Wayne because that was being converted over to a more modern system, and we're still operating on other divisions, and so I had a bunch of equipment that was being moved, and for whatever reason, that one ended up here, and it's never been. I mean, I don't know what I'll ever do with it. Probably, I don't know. I'm probably gonna leave it in a box.
Unless Miko eventually needs a backup.
Well, yeah. I mean, that would be something. So, yeah, it's a monster of a machine. Not that it's a powerful machine. It just takes up a lot of. It's one of those things too. You want to maybe power something like that up for the nostalgia of it, and but those things are such power hogs.
Really,
that thing's got. I must have 6 fans that are like 6 inches round.
Yep.
It's not a quiet running machine. It's meant to live in a server room and behave like it's a server, but it's just DOS. That's cool stuff, Miko. Thanks for sharing that.
He says it's a Toshiba laptop. The battery is dead in it, so he has to plug it in if he wants to use it, and it's got an old floppy drive.
Oh wow! Well, there was a time I had to search eBay to find an 8-inch floppy drive.
Oh.
We had a floppy drive that failed, and there was supposed to have been another one in the adjacent rack. It had been removed before I got to the job. I don't know why. My guess is it failed. But I ended up spending something like $300, and this would have been like 2004, 5, 6, somewhere in that range. I spent $300 on an 8-inch floppy drive.
Wow.
It's something that they couldn't give away at one point in time, and then you wait long enough, that stuff becomes valuable again. And the deck servers were another thing that I ended up spending a lot of money on late one night. Very good stuff. All right, let's continue on. Next, before we do that, let's go back to David, because David, are you doing? You got something going on Saturday, right?
Yes, sir, we do. It is the Westside Luncheon Meetup at Taco Mac. The address is 2650 Dallas Highway, Suite 110. That's Marietta, Georgia, of course. And it's right in the Lowe's parking lot at the corner of Dallas Highway and Barrett Parkway. That's at 11 o'clock this coming Saturday. I won't be able to make it. They snuck in a maintenance job on me out in Tucker, so I'm going to have to be over there to work on a bank after hours, which happens to be noon on Saturday. But I won't be there, but Lisa and Seth, they'll be there. I believe Mom's going to be there and a couple others, so come on out and hang out, and we'll talk about whatever, prepping radios or just some good wings.
Very good. Having some good wings with the Rabbit Hole gang. Rabbit wings.
I was going to say, are those the rabbit wings?
Yeah. They're the best rabbit wings around. So anybody that has an interest in hanging out with the Rabbit Hole group, check out Taco Mac on Saturday, and be a great opportunity. I'm working too on Saturday. I've got a project that I've got a couple of volunteers lined up for, and if anybody wants to do any thankless hard labor on Saturday, possibly in the rain, let me know. We've got a perfect opportunity for that. All right, next on the list, I have Atlanta 306 George in Loganville. George, do you have any comments or questions for the net tonight?
I was just wondering, I've been listening. I'm new to GRMS radios, don't know a whole lot about it. But I'm wondering what makes one repeater better than another one. Is it the height of the repeater or what?
Excuse me. Yeah, and I can't get over it. There we go. Sorry about that. And that's a great question, George, and one that comes with no good answer. So, what makes a repeater good? I guess that the root of that question is, or maybe could be, what makes a repeater good for me or good for you? And location is the answer most of the time. So, and that is not only the location of the repeater, but also the location that you're at in relationship to the repeater. One of the things that makes Flagship a great repeater is the elevation that it sits at. I can't remember what it is. It's like 3,200 feet, I think, at ground level, and then we're almost 200 feet above that. So you're looking at roughly 3,400 feet, and it's in the area, it's the highest elevation. So because there's nothing really that gets up over that, Flagship is able to propagate or send signals over a very, very big distance. Before Flagship, we had a repeater called Sassafras. It was about 100 yards away from where Flagship is, and it was about 100 feet shorter in tower height. Julie and I once made contact with the Sassafras repeater from the cell phone waiting lot at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport on a 5-watt handheld BTEC GMRS V1.
That's so cool.
So that's 50-some miles line of sight.
Yeah.
With very, very low power. Now, it wasn't a great contact. It was not crystal clear. It was being able to pull out the audio through the noise, like we sometimes do with check-ins.
Yeah.
It was a tough copy, but it was a copy, and if you had to make that communication, you certainly could. Now, Flagship is 100 feet higher than even Sassafras was, so it's likely you could repeat that. Somebody could go out to the airport and in the cell phone parking lot area, get the HT out and be able to get back to Flagship. Could you do that with just any repeater? You're probably not going to do that at Fort Mountain. You're certainly not going to do that on the Dallas machine, at least not yet. Noonan, maybe, from the airport. I think so. You could probably get Noonan from the airport. So, again, a lot of that just depends on location. So your location and the location of the repeater that you're trying to access. Let me break. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. I think we've got that particular problem resolved. But there again, what I was talking about was location is really it's the most important thing with relationship to a repeater. In UHF frequencies, which is what GMRS are, line of sight becomes a factor. So if you've got a direct path between your transmitter and your receiver, and that path doesn't carry obstructions, a ridge line or buildings or trees, if you've got a line of sight between those two radios, you'll have good signal coverage into them. But as soon as you begin to add in some of those obstructions, it will diminish your signal. And GMRS is very dependent on the concept of line of sight.
You know what we say often is height is might.
Yes.
To get best line of sight, there's nothing better than just getting to a higher point of elevation, raising up where you're transmitting from. You can throw more power at it. That's not as good as just getting higher up.
Yeah, that's true. And oftentimes what you can gain in elevation, you can gain far more signal propagation that way than you can from more power.
Yeah.
Of course, we're limited to 50 watts here in GMRS, but even if we didn't have that limitation, 5 or 10 feet of mast height will do a lot more than 20 or 30 or 50 watts of additional power. So that's another thing to consider when it comes to what makes a great repeater. We've got a couple of repeaters that have a very modest antenna mast. Like, for instance, the Roam repeater. That's on a 30-foot tower. It doesn't sound like very much. 30 feet. I mean, we've got telephone poles that are higher than that. But that 30-foot tower is on top of that Mount Alto.
Yes.
And that's the highest elevation in that area. And so that makes the Roam repeater have excellent coverage throughout that Floyd County area. So I hope that answers your question. Go ahead, George.
See what you're talking about. So really the height of the antenna of the repeater has a lot to do with say I travel down to Milledgeville and Eatonton, Georgia, and I noticed that the radio is real dead down there. I guess there's not any repeaters around that area that I can reach. Is that right?
Where's Milledgeville?
I was just getting ready to look.
Yeah, that may very well be the case. I'm trying to think of where Milledgeville is, and we're looking it up at the moment. But yeah, there are areas that we do not cover real well. You get down into, well, you get anything beyond Athens, and we really don't have any coverage out that way. You get down past what the coverage is for Stockbridge, down towards Macon. We don't have really any coverage down that way.
Yeah, Milledgeville's over by Macon.
Yeah, and I think we're about to cut off the Toccoa repeater.
Yeah.
If all we're going to get out of that is noise and aggravation, then we don't need it. So, and that's one of the things. There's a point at which your coverage area becomes bigger than you don't get as much reward out of that expanded footprint. We try to make our expansions in areas that make sense and where we have support and a good return on those investments. So it could very well be that Milledgeville area doesn't have repeater coverage. Did you figure out where that's at?
Yeah, it's northeast of Macon. McDonough's going to be the closest tower that we have, the closest machine that we have there. Yeah.
Yeah, so on that way down to Macon,
if you're
going to fade out of the Stockbridge machine, and that's probably going to be it.
Yeah.
So at some point we may expand. We don't have any intentions of expanding that way at this time, but that changes over time. So we'll see what develops. Go ahead.
Okay, I appreciate that information. I know I live down below Albany. That's my hometown, Camilla, Georgia, and I don't know what kind of repeaters are down in that area. I'd have to look and see. But I'd like to be able to talk, down in that area too. So I guess on independent repeaters, it's not North Georgia repeaters. You have to get permission to talk. Is that right?
Generally, that's correct. And if you go to a website like mygmrs.com, oftentimes there's a button you can click that will send an email to a repeater owner so that you can request access on that repeater. Sometimes you can just come on the repeater and ask for permission to use it. Some repeaters are really, really hard. Like, for instance, Midwest GMRS, they're kind of closed to outsiders. So if you travel in that area regularly and you want to be able to access their repeaters from time to time, if you just come on the air and chat a little bit, they don't seem to mind that. But I've not been able to get anybody to answer an email from that group. So it just kind of varies from machine to machine. Some repeaters are stood up with the intention of it being private, and they don't have any interest in outsiders using that repeater. So it varies, and you just have to just kind of wade through the various repeater owners and see what they say. Often email is the best way to reach somebody and make that contact.
Well, I appreciate the information, and that's about all I have tonight. So I'll go back to you. I'm going to sign out right now. So WSFR 920, Atlanta 306, we clear.
All right, George. Well, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. It was glad to have you on the air with us. With that, I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge some more YouTube check-ins. When we finish that up, we'll take a round of late check-ins and open up for any questions or comments. So we have Atlanta 557 Ed in Kennesaw is in and out. Atlanta 420 William in Roswell in and out. Atlanta 95 Lester in LJ in and out. Atlanta 1150 Tony in Canton, a YouTube check-in. These are all YouTube check-ins. I don't know why I'm saying in and out. We have a guest check-in from WRWZ961 Edwin in Rochester, New York. Another guest from WSGU554 just has a guest on YouTube from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We have Dallas 64 Josh in Dallas as a YouTube check-in. We have WSFB 816, another guest from Lynchburg City. We have WSET 603 Landia from Covington, Georgia. And WRQD 950 Donnie in Virginia. I think I had an email exchange with Donnie.
Yeah.
So good to hear from all of you. Thanks for checking in on YouTube. And with that, we're going to continue. Any late check-ins, anyone that would still like to check in to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net, and any questions or comments, the floor is open. Don't fall in.
This is WSBT 603 Monday.
All right, he got in.
Who was it?
Landia.
Ah.
First attempt to hit any repeater.
Fantastic. Are you going to make me talk to him?
Yep. Where did he come in from?
Looks like Jersey.
Jersey, yeah.
Atlanta 123.
Yes.
All right. I think we're going to go ahead and call it right there. We did hear WSET 603 Landia from Covington. Landia, do you have any questions, comments, or advice for programming radios?
Not really. Yeah, I've been struggling myself with trying to program GMRS. Dealing with a few friends that are all ham radio operators, and they're trying to give me some pointers, but it seems to be a little different on the GMRS side.
Yeah, that's right. It is just a little bit different in GMRS than in amateur radio. We kind of offset the other way from what they're used to, but the PL tones work pretty much the same way, and we call them PL tones. That's kind of a generic. That's like a crescent wrench. All right. Everybody knows what a crescent wrench is, but that's a brand name. They're not crescent wrenches. They're adjustable wrenches.
Yeah.
And so we call them PL tones. They're not PL tones, but that's the generic term that we use for the CTCSS and the DCS tones that are used primarily in GMRS radio.
PL is officially Motorola, isn't it?
I believe it is.
Yeah.
And many people think that it stands for private line.
Oh.
There's no privacy in radio.
No.
That's not happening. So fantastic. Well, glad to hear from you tonight. And when you came back, your signal was much, much better. So we had a rough copy on your check-in, but in your comments, you were clear as a bell. So check out the YouTube playback, and you'll be able to hear just what we heard on both of those transmissions. And you can kind of get an idea of what you're doing as you were keying or where you were at, and that might help you understand the propagation from your radio a little bit better.
I was excited for that one because Londia's been on the YouTube stream, the live stream for, I'm not even sure, at least a month.
Yeah.
Several weeks worth, and this was his first attempt to hit the repeater, and he got in and held it, so that's a win.
Fantastic. Well, glad to have you along, and with that, we have one late YouTube check-in from Atlanta 123 Jarius in Ellenwood. Glad to have you along with us tonight. And that is the end of the roster, so I have to find that page. Should be right here, and then on this tab, and right there it is. So this is going to conclude tonight's net. Let me break. This will conclude the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. Tonight we had a total of
78.
78 chickens, including net control. Net control will now be returning repeaters back to normal use. Everyone who signed in should sign out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, comments on the YouTube video shows engagement with the video and helps the channel grow. Thank you for allowing us to serve as your net control this evening. This is WQYR 514, Atlanta 946. My name is Justin.
And this is WRWM 344, Blue Ridge 63. My name is Mike.
And this is WRUB 711, Atlanta 519. My name is Gary.
We are North Georgia GMRS Network.
And we are clear.
Good night, everyone.
WRAT 241, Atlanta 403. Clear the net. Good net, guys.
WRWK 895.